Always.
By the way,
Even if he does a bad tournament, he's going to be board one for the Norwegian TV. He's sitting on board one every round.
yeah, me personally, I hope he's not having a bad tournament. I'm happen to be a fan of Magnus Carlsen.
Me too. I think he's going to do a great tournament, and he's very motivated. He said that he wanted to prove that he's the world's best. He was not in his best shape in New York, and he said that he wanted to be here very much to win both events.
All right, precisely like he did 2 years ago in Dubai when he became Rapid and Blitz world champion.
Called the triple title.
Yeah, right. Last time he managed to defend his Rapid title in Berlin, while in Blitz he was not that successful.
We also see Sergei Karyakin, who did an excellent job in New York. I was surprised by his result, tying the score against Magnus, and he was leading the match. So that I think that's a huge success. And now in Russia, he is a superstar.
Absolutely.
He's everywhere on the media in Russia. Jan Nepomniachtchi is a very tough player in speed chess. I think he is very good at Blitz.
Well, the shorter the time control gets, the more you should be worried about having this guy as your opponent. And not to forget, on table number 2, which was not yet shown, we have Hikaru Nakamura, who is, well, very high rated in Rapid, but in Blitz, I mean...
Yeah, or in Bullet.
In Bullet, yeah, once again, same with Nepomniachtchi. The shorter you get, Hikaru Nakamura himself playing against, I believe, Ahmed Adli from Egypt.
The games have started, so we are on time. That's great news, because we were a bit worried that we might not start around on time, but we see here Jan Nepomniachtchi playing against Levon Pantsulayev from Georgia. And do you see the piece as well?
Yeah, not quite, but I believe we can...
Sicilian Pausen, if I see correctly, with the bishop e2 line.
Yeah, right. So, well, in a couple of minutes, or even faster, we can get our favorite analysis board. So I'll prove to be useful. I'll start, those little moves on the board. Well, whom we can consider the favorites?
Magnus Carlsen, I think, is clear favorite, but there are always surprises. And there you have it, the analysis board. So it is a Marotti setup, a Sicilian with a Marotti setup in the game of Jan Nepomniachtchi.
A6, C4, knight F6, knight C3, queen C7. Yeah, that's the one. So, well, kind of a trendy move, this 5C4 nowadays. And his opponent, Levon Pantsulayev, should not be underestimated. Well, he's, I don't know how high he is, rated like 26 something, I believe. But he's known to... I remember him playing a World Cup in 2005, 2006, when he was a young grandmaster from Georgia. Nobody would know him, and then he played a few fantastic matches, losing only to Boris Gelfand.
Oh, so he is indeed a very strong player. 2600, as you mentioned. Jan Nepomniachtchi, we see his rating there, 28-12 in Rapid and Blitz, 28-30. Yeah. Impressive numbers. Jan Nepomniachtchi, who is the silver medalist from last year in Rapid.
Blitz. I don't know, it was in Rapid, right? I was
surprised, actually, because I always thought that he's a very strong Blitz player, but in Rapid too he is so strong. So any speed chess is fine for him. He took silver last year. He was leading together with Magnus Carlsen just 2 rounds before the end, but I think he only scored 1.5 out of 2, and Magnus 2 out of 2. So Magnus won the event in Berlin. But I'm sure that Jan Nepomniachtchi wants to win here as well. Who else do we consider as favorites? Carlsen, Nepomniachtchi, Nakamura.
Yeah, absolutely. Maxime Bachir-Legrand, who is rated number 8. But, well, still, you can expect from him very good performance. Shahryar Mamediyarov, his attacks are always dangerous.
Yeah, and he's very quick. Also, Vishy Anand, the former world
not
champion,
to forget the Tiger.
You can never rule him out. He said he's very motivated. He wants to win as well. Everybody wants to win, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's somewhat tricky with the Rapid rating, because you have Aronen as low as number 11, for instance. If you check the top 10, Aronen is not there, but we all know.
Yes.
I mean, Levon.
It's not his strength. Yeah. He belongs to the top 10. Actually, I think the top 10 in classical chess and in Rapid chess should be more or less the same. There are a few players, 2600 grandmasters, who might be stronger than 2600 in Rapid or Blitz, but the the top 10 in classical chess is also very good in rapid and blitz.
Yeah, absolutely. But, well, what's interesting about the Blitz, there are some players, surprisingly, or let's say they are not matching with the classical top 10. And if we check precisely, the man who is not here actually rated above the world champion Magnus Carlsen, Ding Liren of China, who is sadly not taking part here, but he's number 1 rated in Blitz.
And the number 3 on the Blitz rating, if you already mentioned that list, is Artemyev, a junior Russian player who is not in the top 10 in classical chess, but of course he has a bright future ahead of him. He's only 18, I believe, and he's number 3 in the world on the Blitz. The Blitz will start in 3 days, but we just wanted to mention that there are players who are much better in Blitz or rapid chess than their usual chess.
All right. Well, I'm trying to show the game of Magnus Carlsen, but I'm afraid they play that fast, particularly in the opening stage, that even an electronic board is not in time to catch up with the moves. Because as for now, I have like 4 moves only, and I believe they played much further. Yeah, I can see a castle played by black, so it means at least a couple of moves more.
We can analyze the opening though.
Yeah, okay, now it popped up. Yeah, so that's the...
1e3.
1e3,
Magnus
right.
Carlsen's second favorite opening?
Well, that's interesting. He did so. He played it in the first round of Olympiad.
Yes, he did.
At least the first round for him, because I think he didn't play in
round 1,
Yeah,
I think.
right. So he played against Hussein Enamul from Bangladesh, if I'm not mistaken.
And he played 1e3 in classical chess, so it's not like he's underestimating his opponent. It's just to get out of the theoretical battle.
Yeah, and it has a name, by the way.
Does it?
Yeah, absolutely. Peter
What's
Doggers.
the name of it?
Well, I wasn't sure, and I'm still not sure how to pronounce it, but it's named by the Dutch player Van Cruyff or something. Yeah, so the guy who used to play 1e3. Well, the thing is, if you insist on being original after 1e3, you might get a bad position with white. Otherwise, you will transform into something normal, and that's pretty much the case here. Because
transform into an English opening.
Yeah, some sort of an English opening or Slav. Yeah, so later on, I believe. Well, actually, he did not play d4. That's the position we have now. Mm-hmm. And I really say that white pretends to play black, right?
Yeah.
So some sort of a Sicilian or hedgehog-ish setups.
Exactly. If the black pawn was on e5, it would look like a Sicilian with the opposite colors.
Right, absolutely. But still, yeah, Magnus is to move, and I'm wondering if a3 is to move. And usually you would really stop this knight jumping to b4, right? So
yes, that's annoying if the knight jumps there. Though sometimes they allow it, especially in the Sicilian, we see those knight jumps, the queen goes back to b1, and then with a3 you kick it out. And
right. I just was thinking if something like bishop d3 is an option. You know, Paulsen style. Sometimes they develop a queen on c7, then bishop on d6. Which is vulnerable, but at the same time it can provoke some weaknesses.
And what happens after knight b4?
Immediately it's probably a bad idea, because knight b4 you do take one pawn with a check, but then
you have
this is where the trouble where the trouble starts. Queen b1, and then g6 does look dangerous because of this diagonal, right?
Yeah.
But you have f5 seemingly, and then knight goes to d3. Yeah, knight goes to d3 here, and yeah, basically you are in trouble. Bishop g6, knight to d3, and already you stop right there with white. You say, no, I don't want to play this.
I see the clocks as well, and it's 13 minutes for both players,
and
roughly.
What a move he played. Look, h2, h4.
Wow.
Now that's
preparing
something.
For knight g5.
Knight g5, right. So the same. In fact, I would claim I understand the position well. He wants the same to weaken the king side, but with the other measures. So not running on the knight b4, but keeping the bishop on f1 is for now, and playing h4, heading for knight g5. Sometimes h6 doesn't stop knight g5.
Yeah.
I mean, probably not in this particular position, but you know. knight g5, just
Yeah,
throw
just
it in.
open the H
Takes,
file.
takes. For
Exactly.
instance, if black cooperates, if black takes with the pawn, he might as well be in trouble already, because queen h7 is a threat.
And
After
G6, you
g6,
take
I
on
just take on
D5
d5,
and
and rook h8 is a terrible threat.
Yeah, that would be
well,
beautiful.
it's a massive move, this this h4, so black really needs to do something about it.
So this is just move 9 of
Yeah.
the game, and this is already dangerous for black, for Ganguly. He has to be very careful about how he responds to this h4 move. This is going to be a very interesting game.
Yeah, absolutely. But to Magnus's credit, when he tries to entertain the crowd, I mean, especially in this kind of events when you do have a lot of rounds, because in the World Championship, there've been accusations like you are keeping it too solid, you know. But when it's only one guy in front of you, when you really have difficulties.
Yeah, in
coming
the World Championship
back,
you can't really risk, but here there are many rounds. H6 is on the
H6
board.
is played, so that's...
Will we see knight g5?
Yeah, well, honestly, not. I don't really believe, because there is bishop takes g5 and black wins
Yes,
the pawn, keeps the h file closed.
Yes,
There
actually,
is-
that's the point of h6, so that he can take with the bishop on g5 without
Yeah,
h6.
so h7 is not hanging, right?
Exactly.
So, well, if
What's
it would
next?
be, if it would be 2 minutes game, I'd suggest g4 and g5 later. But
In
yeah,
the
it's
blitz,
probably
you'll see this
over
opening.
optimistic. Yeah, it's over optimistic, of course. Still, it's not too late to play a2, a3. Just kind of
Yes, he
skip
can
the move.
always do that.
I'm thinking, what's black's next move though? When it's not that clear.
No, he should try to develop the rest of his pieces.
Yeah, the guy
but,
from c8 needs development.
b6,
but
bishop b7 could be a way. But I'm concerned about the black king. I know it's not dangerous right now, but with the bishop on b2 and the queen on c2, and after h4 trying to open the h file, this can become really dangerous.
thinking, can he try to take on d5? Once again, if probably black takes with the pawn. I was dreaming of this knight g5 idea one more time, but here probably it doesn't work again.
Because the bishop takes g5.
I mean, if bishop takes, I was kind of happy. So then if queen takes, I assume, then queen c5, and all of a sudden white
Pair
plays
of
on
bishops,
the
better structure.
very solid positional ground. Right, but well, the problem might be that after e takes
g4.
G4. Oh,
Wow,
okay. So
Magnus
if you give
Carlsen
me,
goes for it.
if you give me like 3 chances to guess the move, I'm very good at it. I mean, so I said G4 is the move, knight G5 or knight D5. So one out of 3 I've managed.
But this was your first move.
G4. Okay.
Magnus Carlsen goes for the attack. It's only move 10 and the game is going crazy. He wants to push G5, basically.
Yeah, and well, it's far more harmonious compared to something. I mean, there are some moves which are completely artificial, so it's only one-sided. Here, let's say, if things go wrong, if you do not mate the black king, you can develop the bishop on G2. I mean, maybe in some position, but mainly, of
castle,
course,
no,
mainly,
castle
of course, you want G5.
And this is going to be a spectacular game, I believe, unless Ganguly finds a way to start exchanging pieces.
Which is not easy here, right?
No, not really.
Well, let's try to exchange pieces. Knight c3. What happens in this case? You don't want to take with the queen, probably because of bishop f6.
So bishop takes.
So bishop takes
Or even d
pawn
takes,
takes.
because of opening the
because,
d file.
yeah, rook will come to d1. Then you cover b4 safely, so you can play bishop d3. This also looks like not a bad idea. Yeah, black really needs something. And let's say in case of b6, we probably go g5, right?
I believe so.
G5
If he pushed
and-
g4, that
Yeah.
must be the plan.
h5
He can even
and
go
then
further
something.
with g6 at some
Oops.
point.
By the way, he took on c3.
Yeah, he wants to exchange pieces. That's a good idea when you are defending, to start exchanging pieces. But what we are worried for is that black might not be able to exchange so many.
Yeah, right. And after b6, I just realized one thing. Look, g5, h5, and there is g6, but there is also another motive, queen e4. I was looking for queen e4 earlier to put the bishop on d3,
Oh,
you know.
that
but
would be a
yeah,
deadly
but before that, it was always answered with knight f6. But then after g5, I control f6 square. So maybe that's the one of the ideas.
And if you provoke g6 in the position, can we just show to the viewers? Because your idea is that with the queen on e4, you want to build this battery, queen on e4, bishop on d3, provoke g6, that means the long diagonal weakens.
Right, this, g6,
and now
then
there
something
should be
like,
something
I
on
don't
the
know,
long
knight
diagonal.
e5, threatening to take on g6 or f7. If you capture, then queen takes, and that's another battery.
Exactly.
So switching of the diagonal, and this looks very, very dangerous. All right, knight c3 was taken. Magnus is still thinking, it seems. I suggest he takes with the pawn.
I thought I saw him moving, but now I don't see the board.
Okay, so can we check something else, perhaps? I'm really curious to see what Nakamura is doing. He did take with the pawn.
With the
Magnus,
pawn, d6, your idea, opening the d file, controlling the b4 square, so you might go rook d1, bishop d3. g5 is still in the air.
What to do for black now? I'm thinking b6, bishop b7 is probably way too slow. So
yeah, exactly. No, this position, it's
already
so tough
looks
to play
so dangerous,
as black.
huh?
It is very dangerous. And I'm not sure how shall he respond. How can he protect his king? How do you bring your pieces to the king side?
Yeah, it's not easy at all.
I would be worried as Ganguly for sure.
It's like you need a very strong move precisely here, because one move later it might be just too late.
It might be.
Yeah, I mean, bishop f6, g5, and that's it, right? I mean,
exactly. He played e5, opening the bishop's diagonal.
Opening the light square bishop and blocking the fork for this bishop on b2. Right. So now g5, knight g5, once again an idea, perhaps. I'm wondering if I can manage castle long. I mean, that would be lovely, like bishop d3, for instance. Bishop d3. I probably don't care much of this guy on g4, right? And then
castle.
Yeah, castle. But I was somewhat concerned about this position. You do win the queen,
but you give up a lot of material.
Yeah, what's the resulting position? Yeah, you're still material up, but somehow the attack is gone. The rook is hanging, so it's probably very good for black. Now, it does look like...
You do have the g5 though, so sometimes you can give up the g4 pawn in order to open the g file. I like this idea to castle queenside, but maybe we should prepare it somehow.
It could be that, once again, if we start with g5, then...
How do you respond? You have to go h5.
Most likely he has to go h5, right? And then bishop d3.
Now this is a different story, because we are not losing the knight.
Yeah.
You threaten
after this,
castle.
right... I'm still... Yeah, probably here I can castle. Here probably I can castle. But
let's see what's the difference with the pawn on g5. If you castle here, bishop takes f3.
Here, bishop takes f3.
Then we win the queen.
Once
with
again a
h7.
check. Take over there.
Exactly.
I assume rook takes. And then I'm not sure if I have a time to move the rook because of this g6.
Oh, that's unpleasant.
So the thing is, like, say I play rook g1 and then black goes g6, I probably take, and the bad news is that black has rook d6. Otherwise, it would have been threatening queen h6 check and g6.
Yeah, I started to be hoping that there's something that is it? No, I was dreaming of some attack still, but no, it's not.
Yeah,
true.
well, if queen has to go back, then. Now, I just wanted to say that. Over there, after bishop g4, white is, once again, white did not yet sign for an attack-only mode. So white can go, like, say, check here, and then go back to e4, playing some positional chess. Because, for instance, now I'm threatening to capture c6 and to take a pawn on e5.
Yes.
I might castle short later on. Yeah, so it does look like white is better anyway.
I would be worried about giving up that bishop just in case my king gets weak, but...
All right, and g5, h5 was played. So g5, h5, and, well, Magnus
Let's see what's his plan. Do you think we guessed it with bishop d3?
I think bishop d3, bishop c4, threatening g6. That's a nice one.
Actually, it's better.
Yeah, well, it looks nice, yeah. It looks nice.
g6. What do you do against it? You have to either move the king away from the pin, from the a2 ga diagonal, or what else? How can you How can you
Yeah,
prevent G6?
either king h8 or, as for the moment, I do have bishop g4, it seems,
Yes,
because
the
g6
knight
does
is
not
hanging.
really win the game on a spot.
And what if knight h2?
Knight h2,
Threatening
then
to
you're
take the
right. Yeah,
bishop
this guy
and
is
G6.
really hanging on g4, right? And g6 is a threat. Actually, I don't like black's position now.
I don't like
Bishop
it at all.
e6, you never ever play, right? Unless
No.
I mean, because of this square on e4. White knight is somewhat away from e4 square, but it will get there, right?
Yes.
Rook d1 perhaps.
This looks like a very bad pawn structure. Not getting mated, but still.
Yeah, so bishop c4, and black really needs something to respond.
I can't believe this is move 13 and we already see that black might be in trouble.
He is. I believe he is. Okay, let's check some other games, huh? Because
Yeah,
black
let's
really
see.
has a tough task defending this one, so let's
Can
check.
we see Nakamura's game against Ahmed Adli from Egypt?
Okay, at least I'll try to open the...
So the Egyptian
The
number 1 is
diagram.
playing on board 2 against Hikaru Nakamura. And I believe they are from the same age, so they might have faced each other also in Youth World Championships.
Right, and here we have, what's that? It's some Grunfeld, right? Must have been. No, not really. It did look Grunfeldish over there with this pawn on
Yes.
c5, you know, like this queen b3 system.
Here it did.
Yeah, but yeah, it started like King's Indian, or an attempt to play King's Indian with g3, and then c5 from Hikaru, an English opening like that, or how do you call it? No, it is a King's Indian, a so-called Yugoslav variation, right?
Yes.
And then after knight c3, usually they hang on a second. Oh, it jumps
Yeah,
all
they
the
are
time.
playing very quick. Maybe,
they're playing all-
Maybe then we should see what is the
Yeah,
position
let's
now.
check the position as for now. Yeah.
C6 was played and
C6.
queen takes b2. This passed pawn on c6 seems to be very strong, but at the same time Hikaru says, okay, I'm grabbing the rest of your pawns.
But wait, doesn't he
C7.
lose the piece? Maybe that's the plan, right?
He wants
a
to give
check
up the
over
piece.
there to give the knight away and then to grab one more guy up. Yeah, just
Three
not
pawns.
long enough. Queen e2 was my move. Yeah.
3 pawns for the piece.
And then probably black is doing fine because the king is also somewhat vulnerable. And they went for this line. Queen
Indeed.
d8 check,
Bishop
bishop
F8
f8
exactly
is
the
the only
same that you
move.
have showed.
And then knight d7 doesn't work because of knight e6.
I was wondering
So
about the same one,
Ahmed takes on
unfortunately.
c7, queen e2. And what's now?
How do you evaluate this position with 3 pawns for the piece?
Well, it's really still, it's all about activity. It's all about the placement of the pieces, right? Because I don't really think white risks much in terms of losing this game, right? Because he always gonna... I mean, if I play queen c8 intending to play knight d7, for instance, right? Then most likely black will have to come up with a perpetual.
Yes,
But-
and there's no way to escape from
Yeah.
perpetual.
Well, the thing is that after queen e2, I do have to protect the long diagonal if I want something. And then after queen b7, I just thought, for instance, black starts to push his pawns. What?
I think he offered a draw. He played queen c8.
Queen c8, and he just
and
offered a
because
draw.
that
So
would be a
because
perpetual.
of the line I've mentioned, yeah, queen c8 and queen e4. So I don't know if it's a first result, but one of the first results on the top boards is a
And
draw for Hikaru Nakamura. So already.
We see that I think the Egyptian grandmaster is not satisfied with the result. He seems to be thinking still about the game. Maybe he missed some chances.
Yeah, well, we could not cover all the games, so it
Exactly,
could have
but
been
he's
that.
disappointed. It's incredible. Maybe he had winning chances against the number 2 of the tournament, Hikaru Nakamura.
So it wouldn't be easy for those favorites.
It's not
We
easy.
named like top 10 is a huge favorite, are the huge favorites, but it won't be easy for them, not at all.
And Sergei Karjakin is facing the Swedish grandmaster Grandelius,
Yeah,
who is
right.
also a second of Magnus Carlsen. So this is
All
a
right,
battle,
the
Carlsen
battle
Karjakin.
is ongoing, right? And some Roy Lopez was played, right? And a Breya variation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll not dig in it any further, but a Breya variation here. Up to this point, I know, and up to this point, okay. Let's stick to what's going on now. An ending. Right, queens are off, dark square bishops are off.
So we see
White's
space
to-
advantage for white, but at the same time, black seems to be very solid, covering
Yeah, so
every entry point.
once again, Karyakin will have to use his superpowers of being a great defender, because I still believe white is better here. Well, one thing which comes into one's mind is to take on e5, as long as black cannot recapture with the piece, right? So if you take with the pawn immediately, then it is a structure which is acceptable for black normally, but your knight is far, far away from the
D6.
ideal square from d6.
Yes, because this
And-
protected pass pawn on d5 is a fact. That's an advantage. So
Yeah,
you
and I
need to-
was wondering about something like that. You know, knight g5, attacking f7, you have to play f6, and then to throw this knight in
well,
on e6.
immediately going
yeah.
for a dynamic approach.
Yeah, because it looks like you can't really take over there, right? I probably swap the rooks, then take on e6. At least I'm taking an f6 pawn, right? So
What if black takes on a1 first? Is there a way to?
yeah,
do
yeah,
that?
it was yeah. So you take a1, rook a1, takes,
I want to
but
win
then
this e6 pawn.
yeah, but it might be not easy.
Maybe not.
This,
Knight
right.
c5.
Even though you do win this pawn, yeah,
King
e7 I
f7.
thought, yeah, and then all of a sudden, it's very common for Roy Lopez. I went for some initiative, I exchanged the wrong pieces, and I'm left with two bad guys: bishop on c2, which is not playing, and the knight on g3, which is not doing much.
I guess that's the point of black's position. If we don't, if white doesn't crush in the right moment, it means that black can be better. So it's a very solid structure, and you
So-
must know when. to
Fe5
take
was
these
played
actions.
meanwhile, and
Maybe
black
he's going
takes
for that.
with the knight.
Knight takes.
Yeah, so, well, a clever idea. Once again, we just
Exchange.
realized that this knight is good for white, knight on f3.
Yes, and then
So
knight c5.
Sergei wants to exchange it and to leave white with knight on g3 restricted. By the way, first time we can see the clock of the player, so it's a little bit less than 7 minutes for
7.
Grandelius and 8 minutes for Karyakin. Okay, let's move to something else. It's a very instructive ending, but not particularly exciting.
What about board 3? We have seen already Nepomniachtchi. And
Not really, I don't remember.
oh, we saw only the beginning. That's true. We saw the beginning of the game.
Yeah, Nepomniachtchi against Pansulaya, and that's we are about to see the end of the game. It seems Nepomniachtchi is an exchange up, and feels like he's about to win. Queen
C1.
C8 was played,
And
and
Queen
Queen C1.
I believe black will resign soon. This is
yeah,
just
probably-
an exchange up without any
Yeah.
counterplay.
Probably forcing the queen swap, and I mean you can actually keep the queens on the board, but it doesn't really help you. You don't have any kind of activity with black, right?
Yes.
So it must be just winning for Jan Nepomniachtchi.
What else do we have still going on? What about Mamedyarov?
Mamedyarov against Lushanglay, and Lushanglay, he's a very dangerous guy. Look, here in Rapid, he is in the bottom half of the starting list, but he's known to be very dangerous blitz player. So let's find out what happens in that game.
In the meantime, you can see the official hashtag is Doha Chess 2016. So we are expecting your tweets and posts on Facebook, any social media basically. Also on Instagram, you can use this hashtag, and we are following your tweets, posts. Please tell us your opinion. Who do you think will win the tournament? Which games do you like? Anything that you feel like telling us. Questions too to Yevgeny, because he's our chess expert. So I'm sure that you are looking forward to answering some of those questions from the audience.
Well, yeah, to feel like a chess expert. All right, and the position in Mamedyarov against Lushanglay, I mean, it's a mess. Pardon me, but it's a mess. It's I spend a lot of time calculating if, all the pieces are on the board, you know.
I was shocked when I started seeing the screen.
In fact, I understood white is, apart from the strong attack, which white apparently has, white is a pawn up in the present position.
A
so
pawn
must
up?
be, yeah.
And
I was
this attack going on with knight c7, king d8. What is the king doing on d8? But the queen is hanging, and, well, still
knight
you-
e6,
This should be made
king
somehow.
c8, knight e8 check, and a beautiful mate from d6. Huh? How about that?
I love that. A queen sacrifice.
Look, check. You don't have any other move.
And
but,
knight d6.
and knight d6
That would be a
mate.
beautiful
That would be a
mate.
beautiful finish. So let's stay on this game because knight b5 he plays and it's the same. So
wow,
black has to resign.
What a beautiful finish by Mamedyarov. This is, for now, the most beautiful game of the tournament. This is only round 1, so we might see many more spectacular attacks like this.
But yeah, and look, 24 moves it takes Shakhriyar Mamedyarov to. Yeah, it would have been mate on move number 25. So a miniature. Very nice game.
Mamedyarov wins convincingly and beautifully his first game against the dangerous Chinese player you mentioned.
Yeah, Lu Shanglei. Yeah.
And there he is, the hero of the round. Well, he was the favorite of the game, but winning in this style is an extra point I would give for this.
Absolutely. And it did involve h2, h4 move earlier on.
H4?
So it has something to do with h4 move in round 1, apparently.
H4 is the move of the round, or the move of the event. We will see if everybody plays h4 from now on.
Right. By the way, we should monitor if there will be any kind of an opening of a championship, because a London system was certainly an opening in Berlin.
Yes.
Right.
Here,
last championship
so far, we couldn't detect anything, but h4 seems to be a trending move.
All right, let's go back to Magnus Carlsen. What happens here? By the way, look, the pawn structure suggests that black
they
could
went
not...
for the bishop e6 line.
Yeah.
Bishop g4, knight h2, bishop e6.
No, it was in fact bishop e6 immediately.
Immediately.
Yeah,
not
right. So
takes,
but yeah, it just made white's knight way to e4 one step closer, one step shorter. So white immediately went knight d2, bringing the knight over here. That's the current position. Still, material is equal. White seemingly has a huge positional advantage, but the last move Magnus made...
e1? It's funny how he places the king in between the two rooks. You don't usually see a king on e1 and two rooks on the side.
Blocked with two rooks. No, but I didn't like so much, I mean, the way he made it might be an indication that he's short on time, because he played kind of, you know, nervously a bit and very quick. Queen to g6 was played, targeting a couple of pawns.
He took on c5, is that bishop takes...
No, probably it was knight b4 and bishop takes b4, right.
Yes, I don't see the board. It was knight b4, bishop takes
b4. And once again, when they start playing that fast, even electronics is not in time with them, so we do get those moves a bit later.
C takes b4.
cb4,
yes.
Just in case having a square for the bishop from e7. And
but it does seem that Ganguly has more time on the clock. I don't see exactly the time, but he still has some time to think, and Magnus is blitzing out all his moves.
Queen h5 threatening g6. But, you know, it feels like black might have some counter chances.
I think he played rook d8 immediately after queen
after
takes h5.
d8, right?
Yes, rook f d8.
So the point being after g6, he's going to play bishop f6, protect the pawn on g7, and then those checks...
hide his king on e7.
Yeah, don't lead you anywhere. And after rook f d8, look, I mean, the world champion has some problems, has something to be worried about, because it's an annoying pin, and b4, b3 is a terrible threat.
Look at his face, he is disappointed. He was
absolutely.
shaking his head.
Absolutely, he has to make sure he has a perpetual, I must say, because I'm not sure he has.
This would be a surprising result, because he was controlling the game. He was better in the opening. We thought that his attack was very strong. Suddenly his king on e1 is weird.
Yeah, right. And what do you do about b3 threat, really? Because b3 comes along with bishop b4, after which you just resign.
You can give up that pawn for
king e2 apparently runs into this. Check.
Rook takes, queen
and
c4.
And then queen c4 and too many rooks hanging.
Oh.
And probably, yeah, and there isn't even a perpetual, because after, say, I don't know, king f3, you can take this one and this check, it's only one check, and e6 is protected. Black is absolutely winning. Magnus is in trouble, it seems.
Magnus seems to be in trouble in the first round of the event. That would be very surprising, because I thought he was very confident. He won the playoff of the World Chess Championship.
Yeah, and in a very convincing style, absolutely.
Yeah, he also loves Doha. He's been here with his family already playing the Qatar Masters Opens, and I'm sure that he is enjoying his stay here. He loves being here in Doha. It's surprising that he is not in his best. Maybe it's just that he needs to warm up.
Yeah, you need to warm up in a tournament like that, and luckily there are 15 rounds, so, you know.
I think we might have an interview soon
But we can't
after the
leave,
game of Magnus Carlsen.
we can't
I've
leave
just
Magnus
seen a
Carlsen
report of
losing on
Peter.
his own. Yeah, let's check what he comes up with. Queen g4 was played, protecting
the
the
c4
c4 pawn, so that b3 will be answered with king e2, I assume. b3 if it's played. I'm still not sure if b3 is the move.
This looks also
King
weird.
e2, but it is still dangerous. After b2, for instance, once again, some threats here and there. Bishop b4 is a threat, for instance. Your king is anything but safe.
Yeah, let's just show what would happen after b3 if the pawn is captured, so that it's clear to everybody that we want to give
rook
up this
d1,
pawn
yeah?
to capture on d1,
Yes,
and
you
that's
have
it.
to,
You have to give
yeah,
up the queen.
and
So
queen c4,
that's why
and that's it.
this position, of course, is completely lost. You cannot take the pawn. And if you can't take the b3 pawn, it means that it's a very strong passed pawn.
Yeah, so really you need to unpin on d5, so you do play king e2. After this move, you do what? You probably play knight b1, because if you move the knight any other square, then black
the
swaps on
pawn
d1
promotes.
and a new queen promotes. So
Yeah,
after b2 you have to block the pawn.
b1.
Knight b1, and then black has variety of moves here.
This doesn't feel right. It should be winning for black.
Yeah, it feels like it should be winning. I'm guessing even some things like rook d4 might be considered. Say rook.
Whoa.
Oops. And,
Could that
okay,
work?
black played another move, which
Rook
was rook d3, which still leaves white with only legal move, sane move, which is king e2, and it was played quickly.
What's the point of rook d3? He wanted to triple.
Triple perhaps, but then knight e4 is there, right? So on queen d6 there is knight e4.
So when you go rook d1, the queen is captured.
Yeah, the queen is taken, and
There's not enough material.
probably, yeah, white will not lose this one, that's
Yeah,
I'm
no,
sure.
now white would be playing for a win in this position.
Absolutely.
So what did he do? He went for b3, I believe.
b3 now, not letting white to take, or he does let white to take this pawn, by the way. Can I? No. I thought to take this one, but then simply rook takes and d8
Yes,
is protected.
d8 is protected, so...
So it is still a very...
Yeah, it's funny.
Very dangerous
he could have
position.
played b3 and move earlier too, but maybe he thought this was safer.
Yeah, it's a very dangerous position still, because white really cannot improve the situation. Knight f3, can I do this? And then possibly it's time to triple. That's the thing.
No, that would be very painful. Because
Yeah.
now you cannot protect the d1 rook, and
No, and
you can't take on d3, that's mate.
Yeah, it's absolutely... It's a disaster for Magnus. So, well,
This
really
is not
surprising.
going well for the world champion, who came very motivated to the tournament. Of course, it doesn't mean anything if he doesn't win in the first round, because there are 15 rounds in total.
Yeah, let's remind that we have 3 days of rapid, 5 rounds each day, so it's a long distance to catch up. But yeah, nobody enjoys losing, particularly in the first round.
Wow, what a tournament start, because we saw Hikaru Nakamura also in trouble.
Making
number
a
one
draw
and number two.
yeah, seemingly escaping for a draw, Nakamura.
Exactly.
And Magnus, he'll feel relieved if he makes a draw from this position. Well, let's. Well, he's thinking. Let's check if what we said. Both three, Nepomniachtchi has probably won already.
Yes, Karyakin was
Karyakin
defending.
was this ending, which
How
we.
much time they have?
Yeah,
on the
that would
clock?
be
I'm
really lovely
wondering.
to see what's the time for the players. Mamidyarov was the one from the favorites who won it easily, beautifully, in a very
Yes,
nice style.
that's the beauty prize is going to Shakhriyar Mamadyarov for now, for the first
Right.
round for sure. And we are wondering if Magnus Carlsen is in big trouble or slightly big trouble.
I can't see the move. I mean, that's the problem. That's the problem, because as you pointed out, there is no way to protect the rook on d1.
Yes, that's a problem.
So that means
and this b3
queen
plus
d6.
pawn is so strong.
Yeah, absolutely. And with pawn on b2, let's say white just passes in some way, like h5, h6, trying to get to the king. Then after b2, black doesn't really need to invent anything. After this, black can play queen d6, and now knight e4 will never ever work, because
Yes.
next queen is about to appear on the board.
Now, this seems to be so easy. Actually, rook d3 makes a lot of sense because
Yeah, that was a nice touch.
queen d6 is always in the air, plus the passed pawn. These two factors, and of course the very active black pieces, the bad king on e2.
Yeah, it might be that
He did something.
the best practical solution will be to capture the pawn and to accept playing this.
Piece down.
I mean, it is a lost position, but at least you run away with the king. You do have some positional factors. So e6 is weak. There are some possibilities of, perpetual checks.
I think
And-
he took on b3.
Seems that's what he did.
Yeah, I believe so.
B3, knight takes b3, right? Because you really...
And it's captured. Rook takes d8. Magnus Carlsen with the piece down, trying to escape.
And rook d1, right? Rook
Yes,
d1.
rook d1
Yes.
on the board. They might just have a minute or two on the clock, and Magnus Carlsen with the piece down. Let's see what he has for the piece. He has one pawn plus the pawn structure
Okay,
of
two
black.
pawns, in fact, right? I mean, those are four
two.
against three. Yeah, so
Yeah,
two
sorry,
pawns as for now.
I missed to see.
I
Two
mean-
plus this e6 and e5 pawns. The doubled pawns are not.
Yeah, so it might be
very
not an easy
healthy.
technical task. And by the way, look, 50...
Oh, it's less than 1 minute for Magnus Carlsen and 1 minute for Ganguly. So it's basically a blitz game from now. 10 seconds every move they get. That's important. So 10-second increment.
Right. Well, some people can keep calm like Magnus Carlsen does. I mean, he's down to 30 seconds and he
With the
does
piece
not show...
down.
Yeah, I think he was much more worried when it was about mating his king. I mean, when it was... Yeah, the king was in danger. Now he's sort of...
No, he's still shaking
Nah, he
his
is
head.
still shaking. King f3, right?
Yes,
I think it was king f3.
because the king on e2, let's say, was not the best place for the king.
Yeah, so
Wasn't
king
safe.
is safe. No, I mean, I can imagine white having not such a bad chance to escape. Queen e4, and then I want my king to go to g4, sometimes even further.
Let's say if queen
Yeah, what happens after this check?
b7 or queen c6. Yes, queen
Probably-
c6.
Yeah,
Does he
queen
want?
c6. No, I don't really want to take on a4, right? But
Yeah, but does he want to go queen e4?
yeah, that's the question. Takes, for instance, rook b4, and then he'll start grabbing those pawns, right? King e5. It might be not a bad chance. Rook b4 was played.
B4.
After king f3, rook b4 was played, going for this c4 potentially passed pawn.
Yes, that's an important pawn. That's the first one he should capture, and then the a4 pawn to create an a5 passed pawn. King
G3, bringing a king into safety.
But still,
Ah,
now
queen takes.
and queen h5.
Queen to h5.
Trying to create
Oops.
a perpetual, but
Yeah, right. So what was played was king g3, queen takes, and queen h5. Once again, perhaps threatening g6.
g6.
No, but g6 is not a threat because h4 will fall with a check.
Yeah, you can never go g6. That's important. That the bishop on e7 will be attacking h4. This has to be lost. Do you see any?
Black played some move which I'm not aware of. I mean, he did something.
Going backwards with the
Queen c8, was it queen
c6?
c8 or queen c6 is similarly a
c6,
better move,
yes.
yeah. Well, white's active possibilities are limited.
It's just one pawn for the piece and no perpetual.
Queen g7, basically, I mean, you resign in
He
this
has
kind
to
of positions.
play for tricks. The
Yeah,
only
absolutely.
way to survive here is that Ganguly blunders.
And black takes another pawn.
Now this is just resignable right now.
Absolutely. h5, no, he
Yeah,
managed
of
to
course,
find
that's
a
the
source of
last chance.
counterplay.
Last
right,
resource,
so h pawn
h6.
is running. h5, h6, creating a mating threat.
And Ganguly played
queen
immediately.
c4, not even a queen e4, which I thought might have been an idea to swap queens.
No,
but
he's
queen
just threatening
c4.
mate in two,
He's threatening
basically.
to-
Well, mate in a few moves could be.